Welcome to the Way We Capture podcast. This is a podcast that is dedicated to photography and aims to provide guidance and support to individuals looking to improve their photography skills. The podcast focuses on self-development and also discusses the future of technology and image processing. Through the podcast, listeners can learn about various techniques, tools, and resources to enhance their creativity and productivity. The podcast also explores the creative process behind capturing stunning photographs and how to effectively communicate through photography and storytelling. This week's guest is Jaidev Green. Jaidev is a model, poet, and illustrative artist, a man of multiple disciplines, you can say. Jaidev is 23 years old, located in Orlando, Florida, and he is a dear friend of mine. Let's dive right into this week's episode. Hello.
Hello.
How are we doing, man?
Amazing. How are you?
Doing fantastic.
Good. I love answers like those.
I'm super excited to get started.
Oh, okay. What was the last one? It was last week?
Yeah, it was last week. Just released yesterday, so.
Dope.
Or on the 2nd, yeah. My days, they're going all over the place. So, welcome to the Way We Capture podcast. My name is Zachariah Rock. I am your host. Today's guest, this is episode number 8. Today's guest is Jaidev Green. Woo! What a name. Do you want to tell the people a little bit about you and what you do?
What I do? Yeah, so I think that's hard to summarize. I guess right now, currently, I'm very focused on being an artist and drawing. That's my main thing that I want to do with my life is make a comic book and draw. So that's the main thing. I'm currently doing that and learning to tattoo as well, and just diving deep into what creativity is and living a creative life. That's my main thing right now.
Love it, man. I take it the drawing is your current obsession. Kind of
Oh
putting
yeah,
that away.
it is. No, it's my life obsession. I think now. I don't think there's anything that's gonna top it. It's been something that's like kind of bothering me because I've been almost avoiding it. Like I wasn't doing it my whole life. Like wasn't making it first priority, and now I am. And I'm like, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Absolutely. You just know. When you know, you know.
Exactly. It's one of those things when you it's there, you know it.
So I have a statement to say to the audience. So um, I see Jaidev as an individual who chooses to be intensely present whenever you talk to him. And I love it. That's kind of how that was my first impression of you when we first had our chat. Maybe that was like a month ago, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Probably
some
like a
time
month
ago.
ago.
So I'm glad to see you doing well, man. But it's also an amazing thing to see somebody so young be intensely present. So thank you for coming onto the show. Give me a little bit of your time because I know you're a busy man with your creative endeavors.
Yeah, slightly.
So this is a very interview style. I'm going to be interviewing you. We'll probably take maybe 40 to 45 minutes. So I take it you were prepared for something like that. So
Okay.
we'll
Yeah.
get on into it. So question 1, we'll do a little talking about your background and I'll let you kind of go forth. So as a model who also has a passion for drawing, can you tell us how your creative pursuits in the world of modeling intersect with your artistic endeavors, such as drawing and manga? How do these different forms of creativity influence each other?
Hmm. So I'd say, uh, like currently with the drawing, I'm learning to do it like actually anatomy now. I just started yesterday learning about it, and I think it highly influences what I do with modeling because it's posing. So like me drawing these poses, I'm actually looking at models on Pinterest and drawing them, but it's also affecting how I see when I'm modeling how I should pose. Like, you're supposed to have a looseness with what you do, and I think it applies to both of them. Yeah, I actually haven't taken the time to intentionally see the intersection, but there's definitely an intersection
Yeah.
there. Like it's very obvious that there's an intersection there. And I think as I get better with the drawing, since I've already been modeling for like 2 years now, I think. So I've done that longer than I have drawn intentionally. But once I get deeper into this drawing, I'll definitely see more of an intersection and see how they play together and connect the two more.
Are you are you still actively modeling then while drawing?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm still modeling. It's still important to me
Do you
as
want
well.
to tell the audience how you got a little bit of your start in that?
Well, it's pretty random, honestly. I was just talking. Oh, I grew up and people always told me that I look like a model, and I just kind of like brushed it off. But then one year, my one of my friends from college, said he was. Well, I saw he was a model, and then I asked him about it. I was like, "Oh, I want to do that," just jokingly. And then he just told me just apply. So then I applied to the ones that were near me, and then literally within 20 minutes, I'm not joking. It was 20 minutes. They responded to me and said that they wanted to see me immediately. I was like, "Oh, okay." I thought it was a scam at first. I was like,
Yeah.
"No, there's no
All,
way."
all good things kind of seem like that at first sometimes.
Yeah, it was just very sudden. And then I went to see her, and then she like really liked me, and yeah, that's all that happened. I just signed it right there. I like looked through it because it was a whole contract. I looked through it actually, like reading it. I was like, "Okay, this seems pretty legit," and then I signed it.
So, a question for you. Do you think that models themselves are inherently creative, or are you on the other side of things, right? You're a model, or you're a creative that
Inherent,
models, not a model that's creative.
inherently creative. Yeah, I think it doesn't. Well, I don't. I forgot how you worded the question, but I don't think they're inherently creative. I don't think most people are. I feel like you have to develop it. Like people, everyone can be creative, but I feel like people need to develop it in order to be like actively
Like
creative.
a muscle.
Yeah, exactly. Like you have to develop it because it doesn't just happen. Because there's a lot of models and in other endeavors where they're just doing it for money or for clout type of thing. So there's no creativity with that to me, or not, there's not no creativity. There's less creativity with that.
Have you had your fair share of run-ins with these types of models in the industry?
Mm, yeah, I would say so because they're not. I feel like if you don't take what you're doing seriously, then you can't be creative if you're not taking it
Yeah.
seriously. Because like I take that stuff like every time I'm doing it with seriousness, and I'm like trying not with seriousness like in that type of way, but just the serious stuff. I'm trying to develop the best art I can in that moment, type of thing.
As I was going through in preparation for this interview, I did look at a lot of your modeling stuff, and I was like, "Damn, he's doing the shit."
Yeah,
So,
and it's very odd because I haven't modeled as much as I would like to, but when I look at the pictures from when I started and when I am where I am now, they're like massively different. And it's because the intention I put behind myself every time I'm like doing it. I'm like trying to be better than last time.
dude, I love it because I'm on like the other side of things, being a photographer. So, trying to pose people, take the best photo possible. It's really always just an energy connection with the photographer and the model. And sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not. And so
Yeah.
typically the best art gets created when, you're just vibing out with, who the counterpart in this situation.
Yes.
So let me
Yeah.
know,
I
man.
think.
You ever come out to Utah, we'll come model for me.
No, I actually would want to do that. That's actually a thing I want to do.
Portrait work is great, and I have a lot of fun with it. It's a guilty pleasure for me. I don't really talk about it a lot because I'm like, oh, I'm a landscape photographer or I do like conceptual art. But there is something special about a portrait and something special about people who want to take it serious. I've shot for some people who were very serious and the photos were great, right? Even if they weren't considered, a model per se. But when people don't take it serious, it falls apart. And it's like, well, of course the photos look like shit because you didn't take it serious. It's like a crystallization of reality when you're modeling or with portraits, right?
Mhm.
So moving on, obviously, like the modeling background, we're moving away from modeling, right? We're going into being a manga artist, being an illustrator, stuff like that, right? So this is like
Okay.
your pivot per se, correct?
Yeah, I would say this is more of my focus now.
And I feel that, man. As a photographer, for like the past couple of years, I love it. I wish I could do more of it, but at the same time, my heart is drawing me towards writing and communication in terms of podcasting. So I get it. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's very weird. So, um, a lot of your writing is very philosophical, right? You're a poet as well. That's another. You're very multidisciplined,
Oh
as they
yeah.
would say.
I didn't even like mention that one, but that's a huge one I've been doing. I've been making it a habit to. It already is actually a habit for me to just think of poems on the fly.
I think that's awesome. Not a lot of people are like, "Oh yeah, I'm a poet," right? And so
Mm.
that identity of just being like, this is what I do. Oh, I do that too. Like I'm this. I love it when people can show that confidence when they're creative, because we all know imposter syndrome strikes at the weirdest of times. So you
Yeah,
have to really cement that for yourself, and you have to constitute positive self-talk when you're pursuing a creative endeavor. But
absolutely.
we'll move on. Uh, you've mentioned an interest in philosophy, right? Obviously, a lot of your writing is very philosophical in ways. How do philosophical concepts and ideas influence your approach to creativity, modeling, illustration? Are there any specific philosophical principles that you find particularly inspiring or thought provoking in the work you create?
Yeah, I think all of the things I write is deeply rooted in Stoicism. Like I didn't realize it, but that was like this actually started right after my depression that I gotten into Stoicism to like I was just trying to find something to cement myself out of that so I would never go back to that place. And I guess I find like shelter in that type of thinking of where like I am unstoppable and nothing can affect me type of thought process. So a lot of my writing is very, I guess, uplifting to the individual to conquer anything like that is in front of them type of thing.
Including their mind.
Exactly. So that I think that's the main thing. And I honestly don't think there's much else. Actually, there's also Buddhism as well in my writing. It's I think
Yeah,
too like a lot of um, loving everything. Just having I just because I just really love how Buddha is just very loving, like towards everything. I love that part about him. So I think that is also playing a role into my poetry as well. But it's deeply Stoicism. Yeah.
I love that, man, because I read the Daily Stoic every day. I currently reading Letters from a Stoic by Seneca, and so I could
Yeah.
relate to a
All
lot of the
fire.
writing you have, because I'm like, damn,
Exactly.
like he gets it. So I think that's probably why you and I, when we first had our call, we hit it off like right away. It was like, damn, this is a great
Yeah.
conversation. It was like an hour and a half just went by so quick. So
Yeah.
I'm glad to see you doing well, man. Like seriously, it's just one of those things where the outside world can crap on everything you do, and you can't control the outside world, but you can definitely control your reaction to it. And
Yeah.
a lot of that's just something shitty happened, but I'm still great. My positive
Yeah.
thoughts are still floating around.
Absolutely. That's and Stoicism. I didn't even realize you just made me realize it though that it's extremely important to have that thought process with art. Like you
Yes.
can go creative because there is a lot of outside noise and actually self-talk too that could be negative. Like I just was drawing earlier today and I drew this stuff and I was like, dang, it's not where I want to be. But then I'm like, I know this is the beginning, so I need to just keep doing this. And
Have
I'm like,
you?
I'm fine.
There's a ratio for those negative thoughts as a creative, and I think the science behind it. I'm not going to quote like any research study, but it was just in a book I was reading. It was, you need, for every one negative thought you have, you need three positive thoughts to counteract that negative thought. And it's, the principle here is gratitude, right? So if you're grateful for the fact that you have the autonomy to be able to create, that gratitude will lead you down more of a rabbit hole with creativity. And it's kind of this positive feedback loop, which I love.
Yeah, I'm probably doing it without realizing it. That's how I'm so motivated to keep going.
Yeah.
I think it's partially that, and there's also it's gratitude for sure. I've been practicing that a lot this year, actually. But then it's also a part, I don't know if you use this, but I use like my ego to also boost me. Like I make myself think I'm, I guess, better than I am showing. It's almost a delusional thing type of thing.
Yeah, I think if you're a creative and you're trying to make it a full-time thing where you can create all the time and have the freedom to do so, self-awareness is important. But I think self-delusion is almost like the missing piece of the puzzle for some people because
Yeah.
everybody, it's funny, I actually wrote about this quite a bit in this upcoming newsletter on Saturday. Shameless self-plug, but a lot of what it is just the creative stereotypes, like you're going to be broke if you want to, be a creator of some sort. And I think that narrative is slowly shifting, but you don't get a lot of support. I know when I told certain people in my life that I wanted to be a photographer and that was my dream, like pursue photography, everybody told me like, oh, like that's everybody wants to be a photographer. I'm like, so like, does that mean that I shouldn't do it? And just all sorts of, naysayers and lots of negative talk from the outside. So I think stoicism plays a role into being able to take that first step forward of you need to like have the grit and perseverance to actually chase the things you want to do in this creative realm because there are so many people doing just that, right? They'll ignore, keep pursuing, and all of a sudden eventually they run into like a struggle of, okay, well, my life isn't exactly where it's at. I haven't progressed to where I'm like it's all like expectations, right? Like I'm sure you had some expectations of like where you would be at 20, 21, 22,
Yeah,
23, but
definitely.
a lot of it's just in the now and trying to create when you can and fill those gaps and just stay creative. But some insight.
Yeah. I was supposed to be a millionaire by now,
Dude, absolutely.
bro.
Absolutely. I think most of us can agree on that. We're in like high school, a young kid. I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to make so much money. I actually think we talked about this last time we had a chat. Just like, things don't turn out the way you expect them to, and that's okay. That's part of the game.
Yeah, I'm actually glad it didn't because
Yeah.
if it played out how I wanted it to, I wouldn't be the person that I am. And I'm actually more proud of the person I am than the person I wanted to be.
Dude, that is a beautiful perspective. That is such a great
Yeah,
perspective to have on that. Yeah. Like, what kind of person would I be if, I had everything given to me and I didn't have to go through my hardships? Probably a
yeah,
shitty one. Probably a very
exactly.
unaware NPC.
And I think that reflection right there is like a basis for a lot of my writing because I'm just very grateful towards the hardships I did have, and I just want to. It's almost weird. It's like I just want to keep experiencing that stuff to the degree that I can still become better from it.
You're a
'Cause it's like,
training
who can
arc.
I be? Yeah, like who could I be if I just keep going through this, man? It's only been like, I feel like it's only been a few years since I've intentionally gone through stuff and like worked through it. Like imagine that, next 10 years, like I'd just be an insane man at that point. I feel like I don't know.
There is, I think it's Marcus Aurelius who discusses people with like blind luck and how it's really unfortunate for people to be lucky in life
Lucky.
because they don't have to go through the discomfort, and that discomfort builds character. And the more discomfort you go, the more you're going to grow out of it. So it's just, I don't know. I'm grateful for a lot of like the shitty things that have happened to me in my life because they're very pivotal moments. And it doesn't seem like that at the time, but whenever it's happening, because life throws curveballs. Whenever it's happening, you just have to be able to zoom out and be like, in like 6 months, I'm gonna look back at this and I'll be like, wow, that was like my villain arc or something
Right.
like that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's good. It's good when you can develop that. I remember one of the roughest times this earlier this year, actually. Like I was literally the brokest I've ever been, and there was a day that I literally was laughing about it. Like I quite literally was laughing about it because I've already gone through hard stuff, and I was like, look at the person I came to be after that stuff. I'm like, imagine the person I'm gonna be after this, and I did become better, and now I'm the person I am like now. Later this year, I was like, it turned out exactly how I
Well, and you're
expected it
still
to.
alive. You're still
Yeah,
alive. Like,
it's like I'm still alive. Like I'm fine, even though it felt like it feels like it's the end of the world. But I'm like, I know it's not. I know things are gonna shift and it's gonna be fine because it always is. And if it's not, well, I'll be dead, so it won't even matter. Like, so that's how I think.
yeah, and I think very similarly. That's every time I talk to you, it's like, damn, similar mindsets. It's awesome. It's rare to have conversations that fly by. I mean, we're only like 17 minutes into this. I'm like, whoa, it's like it's flying by already. So we'll move on to
Yeah.
the to the next question that I have prepared. Poetry and writing are also among your interests. Could you share an experience where you've used poetry or written words to enhance a modeling project or a illustrative project? How do you incorporate your literary creativity into your work?
Mm. I feel like I've done it the opposite way around, where it because I use the way I do poetry is I filter my emotion through it. So I don't make the poetry and then I use it for other things. I use the experience that I have and make it into poetry.
And then that
So
poetry inspires the drawing potentially.
yeah, then it can inspire something else. But the way I do it is like kind of backwards from what you had said, because I'll experience something or think about my emotion about something, and then I will make a poem out of it. I haven't particularly used my poetry to inspire much. Like my drawings, because my drawings I'm still like practicing. So I only practice and draw sketches and stuff. I'm not really making actual my own drawings yet. And as far as modeling, I just haven't used. I've wanted to. I've thought of certain things in my poetry that I want to replicate in like the modeling, like do some photography. I just haven't done any recently. But yeah, it's normally the opposite way.
It's insightful. I've I don't I think I've maybe written like one piece of poetry in my life and it was because I had to. I never really considered like how would if somebody wanted to get into writing poetry, what would be your advice to them?
uh, to like not have a rule for it, because I think that's where I messed up. Because I was doing it and I didn't know I was doing poetry. People were just calling it poetry when I was writing on Twitter, and I was like, "Oh, is this poetry?" Because I thought poetry like had the rhyme and stuff.
You're like,
I
am I
don't
a
know.
fucking poet?
Yeah, am I William Shakespeare? Like no,
Oh, dude, I bet
but
that was pretty fun to go through that whole
yeah,
experience.
it was weird. Like people kept saying poetry, like they were using that word to refer to my work, and I was like, okay. Then I started looking at poetry. I intentionally looked up poetry, like the popular ones, and then I was like, oh, I see.
This
This is
makes
like
sense.
it's a different type of poetry, because I was thinking of a specific one, I guess like the old poetry, but there's like modern poetry, I think it's called, where it's more fluid and there's different styles. Like you can do different things. Like sometimes it's just like a one line prose
Yep.
and it's called poetry still. I'm like, oh, I do that all the time on Twitter. But yeah, I would say just don't have a rule if you're going to start doing it. And also, the other thing too that's important is, like I said, use your emotion to emphasize the poem, because that's all I'm doing. I'm kind of just using the correct words that describe emotion perfectly. So that's why it hits hard, because it's like, oh, I know exactly what he's trying to say because he's using the right words to
Yeah.
explain the emotion.
Clear and concise with a bit of creative emotion. It's great. Yeah, I the whole writing thing, right? Because it's never when you write, you're writing for yourself, but at the same time, you can write for the reader. And so when I'm writing, obviously a lot of it's like I'm writing to my past self. I don't think a lot of people realize that. I think they just think I'm trying to be like pretentious on Twitter with platitudes or whatever. But it's just like most people who are writing on X, they know it's like, yeah, I'm serving my shadow. I'm doing the work for my past self so someone can resonate with it. I think a
Mhm.
lot of poetry could potentially be like that. It's like, hey, I'm gonna have this as like a centerpiece so I can go back and look at it and remember how far I came or how I felt or the lesson that I learned, but it didn't cement into my brain. So sometimes I'm like, yeah, I think I'm a terrible fucking writer. Like I don't like by any means am I like, oh, I'm a great writer. I actually think I'm terrible at it. But then you get like the outside perspective, and that outside perspective is very much encouraging to keep on going. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I love what you do. It helps me as a poet. I can only imagine how great it feels to connect with somebody who reads your poetry and like gain something from it.
Oh yeah, because it's like the thing is about poetry, it's extremely vague and specific at the same time. I feel like it's so abstract when you say it. That's why it's only in a few words, but like it could mean a lot to certain people when you read it. Because I know I've read some poetry, and I'm like, dang, that hits hard, man. Because it reminds me of some type of feeling I've had. That's why I think like people love romantic poetry because it just reminds them of because that's a very strong emotion like love. So then when they read that stuff, it reminds them of a specific time, and it just hits for them. So yeah, I could definitely feel that. It's like it's very I don't know, it's very encouraging when someone actually understands what you're saying.
What is the best poem you think you've written?
Oh, I have it in my phone. But I don't know.
It's
Should I look at
somewhere.
it?
Yeah, look at it. Read it out.
I don't even know if I could say there's a best one. Probably.
I mean, that's definitely hard, right? It's very
Yeah,
subjective.
because like when I look at it, I'm like, because some of them I read and I'm like, dang, did I really write that? But I did because I know I wrote it, put it in here. Oh, I don't know, man. But I could read a random one.
Read one out for the
I
audience.
yeah, I'll read this one because I like this one. My soul is an instrument. I will play a symphony in this one life, careful to play each note in tune, staying in key of the score, never looking back at past mistakes. With time being the conductor maintaining tempo, I too will keep up the pace.
Shit. You wrote that? No. Okay.
Yeah,
Did you
but there's
just?
a I like because I'm planning to make. Well, I'm not planning. Yeah, I'm making a book, like two of them. I'm making one that's more love and one that's more on self-actualization. And that was one from the self-actualization one. So I'm just dumping all of my ones that I think are good when I make them. And once I have it, enough, I'll go through and filter which ones are not good enough to me to keep it to have in a book. So I can like, revise it again. But yeah, that was from one of them. That was just one of them from the book that I
I
plan to
love it,
make.
man. Well, you let me know when that comes out.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna let
We'll
everybody know.
throw it on the coffee table. You know, it's always how it
Yeah,
goes.
that's gonna be my greatest creation ever, like in my life, a book. Like that's
Yeah.
insane because I used to tell myself there's no way I'm gonna take until I'm like 30 to make a book if I do make a book because I thought making a book was like impossible for me. I don't know why, but it just seemed like a daunting task.
It really is, especially when you see that some people have like what is it like over 100,000 words in their books and whatnot, and
Yeah,
it's like, dang, I remember being in high school and like a 3,000 word essay was like a pain in the
dude,
ass.
that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. Like I was terrible at essays. I was horrible. I could not get more than a B in English. That's why I'm surprised I write today. Because
yeah.
I'm like, I was horrible at it in high school.
I think it's because there was a lot of constraints within writing when you were in high school or just in school in general. You have to do this, you have to read this, right? There's no like freedom to explore.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
so as we get older, I think there's like this urge to just build a library. And I love it because there's nothing I love more than looking at my library of books that I've read and books that I have yet to read, and it excites me because I'm like, what am I going to learn? There's all this knowledge just in this little box, and I can always return back to it and gain better ideas. And but it's almost like encouraging to have a library because especially if you want to write, you look at it and you're just like, what if that's like one of my books one day? Like, what if I can write a book and it's on someone's bookshelf? Like that would just be so profound for me.
Yeah,
For maybe
that
for
would
you
be.
too. It's just like
It would be unreal. Like I wouldn't believe it.
I want to make a photo book, something similar to like your poetry, right? Making a photo book is kind of, I would say it's like the pinnacle of being a photographer. Obviously, outside of you know going to Yosemite and like Glacier National Park and doing the stereotypical shots, but there's something really great about being able to print off your work in any creative medium, especially when it's like physical and tangible, not just like on digital. You see it and you realize, holy fuck, this is like the full circle event. This is like the end of the story in a way, in a like smaller
Yeah,
way. It's the end of the
yeah.
story on this piece. It's in my hands, and I can look at it and observe almost everything that went into it. The story, where I was at, just and that's why I love photographs. But I think it's good to experiment with different mediums.
Absolutely.
So print out some of your writing.
I love how one of your um, pho- photographs inspired me to write. I don't know why it was like so striking to me, the photo, that I felt the need to write a poem like in that exact moment,
Dude, I would
and I
love to see
did,
it.
and I loved it.
I would love to see which photo inspired you because
I wrote right under it. I remember you replied to it. I
oh,
just can't. Yeah, that one.
oh, okay. Fuck, dude. Now, okay, now I remember it.
Yeah, yeah, that one. I like that one too. That one I wrote. I was like, I can't believe I came up with something like this good,
Off of a
like on the
photograph.
fly. Yeah, off of a photograph too.
For me,
But that's
it's music,
a lot
dude.
of
Like music inspires
on
me a lot of
music.
time to take the photographs, or when I'm editing, I put on different, and when I'm writing too, it's different music. Certain genres will motivate me differently. Some inspire focus,
Yeah,
some inspire emotion, and then I don't know why the colors just kind of come out of the music and get put on the canvas or the the Lightroom.
they do. They do. I was just listening to classical music before this, but I was also at the time reading something that was a bit more violent, and it was weird because I could see, like, the manga was violent, so I could see beauty within the disgustingness of it. It was weird.
Yeah,
It's like you can mix
that's
the
kind of
medium.
trippy.
Yeah, when you mix the mediums, you can see like weird stuff. It's actually kind of crazy. So I want to like
Yeah,
test that more.
yeah. There's I think in the Creative Act, Rick Rubin mentioned something about that where like for writing songs, right? Like let's say you're really sad and you're writing a song about being happy, you're gonna get like a weird end result. Or if you're like really happy
Yes.
and you're writing a song about love, obviously it's gonna be something specific. But then if like you're like depressed writing a song about love, like boom, something completely different. And it's just like these 1+1 mixing creations. But the medium thing is always like I think everybody should experiment with different mediums. All right, like I'm gonna go probably write some poetry after this. See like what can come out. Just messing with you. So yeah, I encourage you to take some photographs as a model. If I mean that might be a good way to improve your modeling.
Oh yeah, I am trying to get better with photography. I'm actually
Photography
trying
is
to.
a weird medium, man. I will never like, and for me, it's like AI. Like, I do a lot of AI art too because I think it's a new, interesting medium where there's not a lot of constraints on it. You know, most like with photography or with drawing, there's constraints because our ability to craft. But I also
Hmm.
think like AI is like a whole other ball game that we don't even need to go down because it's scary.
Yeah, that's very.
So I
Uh,
got a specific question about um your Winter Park Fashion Week. I went through your Instagram and I saw this, and you have modeled in like a Fashion Week style event, correct?
yeah, yeah. It
What
was a runway too. Yeah,
how did you like curate your own looks for that, or were you just modeling someone else's work?
I was modeling someone else's work, and I was very surprised. I was very pleased with how they put the outfit together. It looks super good. I thought.
When was that, and how did that cement you as like an actual model? Like you're like, oh, this is for real. I'm on the runway.
I think that was like a year and a half after I signed. Maybe a year. I mean, half a year after. Yeah, I can't remember, but yeah, it was my first runway, and that was the main thing I wanted to do as a model was do
Walk.
do runway stuff. Yeah, at the time, yeah, it was just such a cool thing to me. Like you're just walking in front of a bunch of people. It was just like if inflating my ego type of thing.
Well, I mean,
And
absolutely.
and dude, on top of that, somehow I don't know how the universe did this, but I was the first person to walk for that brand. Like I was the front person. I was like, dude, it's my first one. I'm in the front.
Holy
I
shit.
led the whole line. Yeah, I was like, there's no way this is happening to me. But
That's
yeah,
awesome, man. Like that's
freaking
actually,
dope.
I was curious about it because I was like, he's walking on runways now. Okay, like, or like when did this happen? Right? It's like definitely way before I even got to know you. But I
Yeah,
was like, that's a badass. Like that's like a stamp almost like a gold star. It's like yeah, I've done the shit. You know, I've walked around the
yeah,
block a couple times. So that's awesome. Like that's all I have to say is just like okay, cool.
yeah.
It's weird
I
when
hope to,
you interview people. You just kind of go down in this deep dive of like, oh wow, that's what that person's done.
yeah, I hope to do more of those, honestly, because that was really fun. I was just chilling, talking to people, getting to know other people, and and then just waiting for my time to walk. and then I did the walk. Very easy job.
Love it. I love it. So it's fascinating to me that you always enjoyed discussing lifestyle, like the specific creative lifestyle. And there's a lot of good insights that, we kind of share between one another. Can you just share some insights in how you maintain like the balance between all of it and like modeling per se or all the other creative interests you have? Like how do you keep juggling them? Like what is like your secret for that?
Well, I prioritize. That's that's the main thing. Prioritizing, and also knowing how much of something I need to do to get what I want out of it, basically. So to just explain it in like an example, like modeling, I don't put that much time in because it's not something I can just practice all the time. If you think about it, like yeah, I could take pictures of myself and stuff, but it's not like I have a photographer living with me and I'm just gonna take pictures all the time. So that one, it's like I can do here and there. So since it's not daily, I'm like good with that. Then I think about drawing. That I'm forcing myself to do that like every hour, basically. Like not I'm not doing it every hour, but I want to get to the point where I'm doing it almost all day. That's where I want it to be at. As far as poetry, it's more of an on the fly thing. It's when I feel an extreme emotion that
That
I'm trying to,
spontaneous
yeah,
energy that hits.
yeah, exactly. I want to make that very spontaneous and more just inspiration driven, so that it's more potent. Because if I make myself do it all the time, every day at this exact time, I feel like it's not going to be where I want it to be. Because I've
It's
already
actually
tried
really
it.
interesting.
Yeah,
Holy crap.
like I could do it at the same time every day, but it just doesn't hit when I experience something and I'm like, whoa, that was kind of crazy, or like I think of something and then I'm like, let me just start writing it now. That's like more important to me. So
I've
that's those three things.
I've
Yeah,
discussed it
something I'm missing?
before. So it seems like you have your habitual creation and your spontaneous creation. And
Yeah,
you're balancing two of them. And it's actually really impressive to see somebody actually like I talk about this all the time, right? But I believe in habitual creation, right? You need to keep going with habitual creation. But you just kind of changed my mind in the moment right there, being like, yeah, like I'm not going to do it habitually because if I do, it takes away the sauce.
the thing is, it is habitual, but it's spontaneous throughout the. It's daily. It's yeah, like daily it's habitual, but throughout the day it's spontaneous.
You're
That's
tapping
how it is.
into the
Because
energy when it
I
shows
have to do
itself.
it every day. Yeah, I have to do it every day, but I have to do it every day at any time of the day.
Yeah.
So it's a little different.
And
But yeah,
I'm trying to apply that to my own life. I'm going to think about that. And I'll probably get back to you. Like, how do I apply that? Because like
that one's hard.
you just
That one's
placed
hard
it
though.
into words so well. I'm just like, damn,
Yeah,
fuck,
I made it sound sexy, but it's hard to do. It's
dude.
really hard to
It's
do.
way hard to do, man. That's why I'm like, holy shit. He just kind of broke my brain on that.
Yeah, that one's hard to do because there was a few days where I didn't write anything, and I was like, "Damn it, I haven't been writing." And like, what made me upset about it was I had experienced stuff that I could have written about, but I
hmm
didn't write it in the moment. So I was like, "I'm not gonna look back on it and try to make something now.
Isn't that
It's not
like the
gonna be the
worst
same."
feeling ever? Is when the
Yeah,
idea strikes and you're like, okay, I'll write it down. I'll write it down, and all of a sudden you just lose it. You lose the sauce of this energy of like, wow, that's a brilliant idea. That's like that spark of creativity coming through from wherever it comes from.
right.
But dude, I love that. Like that's awesome. So holy crap, I'm just like
I mean,
kind of
a
jaw
little
dropped by that.
a little hack that I was doing a couple weeks ago was while I was at work, and I know you have a job too,
hmm
so maybe you could try this. Since it's such a mundane task, I will try to think of poetry at that time because I can't at that point I can't model, I can't draw. So I'm like my only option to creatively do something right now is to make poetry in my mind. So then I just start making stuff based off of random things I'll see or hear. So like since I have music, I'm working at a Target. So I hear music and then I'll just pick a word or two from the song and I'll try to make something off that. And I've made amazing poems off of just doing that.
Dude, that's Rick
So
Rubin right there. That's some Rick Rubin influence.
yeah, no, but that's the thing. That's why that book hit so hard for me because I was doing it before I knew about Rick
Oh,
Rubin. Yeah, I knew about Rick Rubin. I mean,
Dude, that
the
book
stuff that he was doing.
it hits hard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like when I was reading, I was like, this guy is saying everything I do. It's weird. It's like actually weird because I didn't realize how creative I was until he describes the way he's creative, and I'm like, holy shit, I do this.
No, I love it, man. In our first call, I definitely was like, okay, this guy, he is so intensely passionate about just the act of creation in itself, and it comes off in your character, right? You're like, all I want to do is create. Well, I think what did I say to you the other day on Twitter? It was something along the lines of, I was like, you need to take care of yourself, man. It's like if you fucking die too soon, it's gonna be like a travesty. Like,
Yeah,
make sure you're eating, make sure you're taking care of yourself, and that's the problem I see with a lot of creatives is they get so wrapped up in the act of creation that they completely neglect other areas of their life. And we want our health span to be as long as possible. Obviously, you have your lifespan, and then you have your health span, which is the period of your life in which you are healthy and can have autonomy and do the things you want to do. And it's really
mm,
tragic to see people lose their health span just because of X, Y, or Z, or the quality of choices they make for their health. Because we live in hustle culture. You got to hustle, hustle, hustle. Maybe you need to eat fast food, or maybe you need to drink soda and all sorts of caffeinated beverages that have horrible shit in them that are just going to decrease your health span. But take care of yourself, and so you can create. That's I think
yeah,
that's my message to most people who listen to this podcast is you need to optimize for longevity so you can create more. You can only create so
exactly.
much in one day, in a week, in a month, but over the course of like I can't imagine in like 40 years like what my life will have been. And I'm sure you're the same way. It's like, what have I created? Who's gonna watch my YouTube videos in 100 years? On my last podcast with Jack Wardale, we're like, yeah, I can't even imagine. Like, YouTube's still gonna be up, unless the world ends in some crazy way.
Yeah,
But who's gonna be like looking at my work? Because I'm sure there's like people in like the 60s and 80s who deem as like profound, or even like the Stoics. Back to that other conversation we had earlier, their work was probably like, oh, like people like overlooked it, and it got to the point where they're like, okay, well, I'm just like publishing to nobody, right? Nobody's coming up to me and be like, oh, like your letters from a Stoic Seneca, they're fire, man, like good job, like little
yeah,
heart emojis underneath in his comment section. No, he didn't. He was like in exile, and he's writing to somebody he knows, and then they compile that, and like fast forward like 1600 years or something, something ridiculous. All of a sudden, where people are picking it up and like passing along these lessons and using it as a guide to life. And so like if our writing could have that same profound effect in like 1,000 years, that would be insane. That is like true essence of
yeah,
creativity.
yeah.
Oh,
Takes a lot to get there too, to
it
filter it
does.
down to something that's that good, that it could stand the test of time. It's not like they just pulled it out of their freaking ass, like
Yeah.
they were living that life and we're just filtering it through the words.
I think the best writers live the greatest lives,
Yeah,
and they write about
they
it.
have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have to.
Ooh, that's super inspiring. Just to say that, just to like put that out there, that is way
Yeah,
inspiring. It makes me want to
I,
go like climb a mountain or something.
yeah. I feel like maybe that's why I'm so confident with my work, even if people might not say it's the best. I feel like it's so good because I love my life so much and how I live it. It's like if I love my life this much and I'm filtering it through my creation can only be that good because the input is good.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's dude, that's somewhere where I struggle. So maybe I need to like start taking notes on how you live your life and apply it to my creativity, because there's definitely a lot to be learned from you. It's just like, whoa, multidisciplined, you're doing your thing, your mental's good. So um I'm gonna wrap up the podcast in a little bit. We've almost hit about 42 minutes, but I just wanted to ask you two questions just to end. And that first one is, what does creativity mean to you?
Creativity. I'm thinking of creation, but creativity. I think to say it plainly is connecting the dots. That's what it is to me. because that's what it feels like I'm doing anytime I feel like I'm being creative. If I'm saying I'm being creative, it's me connecting the dots of two stimuli together to make something else. That's creativity. So you could do that in anything, in any type of art. You're connecting two dots, or more, two or more, to make something else.
I love
That's
that.
what it is.
I love that. That there's so many different answers that I get when I ask people that, but the idea of creativity being something new is almost always the foundation of it all. So keep doing your thing and keep creating new things, and hopefully one day you have an incredible manga series with like 187 chapters. But the next question is, what would be your one message, if something simple like one sentence, one message to people who you love and people who value your work when you die?
The people that value my work. Read it again.
Read it again.
Okay. Yeah.
That's very in character for you.
Yeah, like I don't know. Because I think I don't know what to say because I want them to interpret it however they want to, and just hopefully it's a positive message they get from it, and nothing negative comes from it. But I don't. I guess because I don't care. And I know that sounds like cold. It's just I don't really care because I created it for myself anyway. So it could just be as good. Like hopefully someone gets something from it, but it's for me anyway. So yeah, just read it again. If you liked it, good. Just read it again. Because that's what I would do with my greats. I would just read them again, ingrain the lesson, enjoy it, savor it, you know.
Dude, seriously, never stop being yourself. Every single time, like, damn, I love it. Um,
Yeah.
well, we're gonna wrap this up. This is the Way We Capture podcast, number 8. I will plug all of my dear friends' socials. Hopefully, you guys can learn some poetry from them on X, or if you're looking for people who model in Florida, somewhere around there, let them know. You want to walk more runways, don't you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do.
No, man, I really do appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation with us. And it was just so fluid. I'm just like,
Yeah,
taking it serious.
of course, as always.
All right, man. Well, much love. I will catch you on the flip side. And everybody who's listening, thank you. We appreciate you guys. New episodes out every Monday.
Thank you.